what's up? I went through a 4-hour hypnotherapy session, and I think it changed my life. I really think it changed my life. This is how it went. So I have my coach, my good coach and friend, Bogdan Mikov. And, hypnosis is very interesting because you're allowing yourself to be in a trance. But when someone is guiding you through something, it's like a guided meditation, very much so. And it allows you to stop thinking. So you actually turn off the conscious mind because you're allowing somebody to guide you through a series of steps. And whenever you turn off the conscious mind, you become very suggestible to new ideas and to things that, and the instructions that you allow ultimately to be sent to you. And so when you're in a hypnotherapy session, you're fully in control. It's not like somebody can just tell you, hey, go jump into this pool while you're hypnotized. And if you don't truly want to do it, you don't. But because it's like a trance, you're allowing yourself to relax, and when you're relaxed, the mind becomes open to new ideas. You become suggestible to new ways of thinking. And this is how you can actually make a lot of progress in a very short amount of time, because someone is there helping you restructuring your beliefs and your thought patterns. And so basically what we were doing is, first he allowed me to relax, and I just relaxed, closed my eyes, and it was a very, very intense visualization that he made me do. And I was following, and then the subconscious mind arises different things that then you're forced to deal with, but then he gives you the instructions into how to deal with them. So I'll give you an example. And so the first thing that he asked me to do was to think of a timeline where right now I'm in the present moment, and picture your timeline going all the way into your past, right? And then also picture your timeline going towards the future. So as if you're looking over your timeline where you are right now. So I'm sitting here and I'm visualizing this. And I'm looking down at myself. I'm looking at my timeline, whatever that looks like. And then what he asked me to do was we were uncovering different sources of emotions, of negative emotions, like anger, like shame, like fear, and guilt. And going back into my timeline to find where exactly the trauma started. The first instance of me becoming angry. The first instance of me feeling guilty or shameful. And when I would go back into my timeline, and you find that moment where it occurred, when you find the first one, it's like you're cutting a weed at the root. And when you cut the weed at the root, all the other events that triggered that emotion, become weaker. And so then what you do is, okay, look at the memory from the top looking down, and you see the memory. And then you go a little bit closer, more intimately into the memory. And then you zoom back out. You float back above your timeline. And then, here's the interesting thing, what happens in hypnotherapy is find the positive meaning of this experience. And that's the shift, because you're starting to reprogram your mind that everything is actually a positive experience. And when you're in such a suggestible state, these changes, I would argue that they actually become permanent. because it changes your perspective on every other single moment in your life moving forward. Because now everything is actually a positive experience in itself. There's always a positive meaning. It's like the two sons, the two brothers that both had an alcoholic father. One started a charity, was super successful, right? He was inspired because he didn't want to be like his father. He was motivated because he didn't want to be like his father. And the other brother became an alcoholic. He was a burden to his family. And he had the same reasoning because his dad was an alcoholic. And so it's about the meaning that you create. It's either a positive meaning or a negative meaning that ends up causing the actions that you take in your life. And so whenever you start transforming every single negative meaning from your past into something positive, then the same thing starts to happen from the present moment. And so think about this. We started going through the emotions of anger. We found that event, that triggering event where it first became angry in my life, that caused most of my anger that I still had subconsciously in my body. And we release it. We transform it into a positive experience, into a positive meaning. And then he says, now, every single moment that you were triggered and you became angry, replace that moment one at a time with a positive meaning. And then so I go through my timeline all the way from my birth into the present, and every single moment that my subconscious mind arose, I started changing the meaning of that anger into a positive emotion. And the crazy thing is, here's the craziest thing, because then you check and you say, and he says, okay, now I want you to go back. Now I want you to think of an emotion or a memory that used to make you feel angry. And as much as I would try to go back to those emotions that made me feel angry, I didn't feel it anymore. It was unbelievable. I was trying to make it, and sometimes I would feel a shell of it, but it didn't have the negative charge anymore. I couldn't believe it. And we did the same thing for anger. We did the same thing for fear, for guilt, and shame. The strongest negative emotions that we feel. And guilt was a difficult one. There were some deep-rooted things that I felt ashamed and guilty for. But then I transformed that experience into a positive meaning. And so I think this actually made a permanent change in my mind, in my brain. Because now moving forward, I'm no longer triggered by those emotions. And I remember I read the book called The Untethered Soul. I highly recommend you read this book. And there was this chapter called The Thorn. And the thorn is the trigger. The thorn is like a trigger. Like every time you encounter a certain situation or you encounter a certain emotion, that thorn pokes you. It's like a thorn poking you in the body, and it makes you behave a certain way. But when you remove the thorn, then you can actually just be you. Like one example I can give is like social anxiety. You avoid social situations because whenever you are in a social situation, that anxiety, that thorn pokes you, so you can't be you. And you avoid certain situations, certain environments because of that thorn that's poking into you. But when you remove the thorn, it's painful to remove the thorn, yes, but then you can actually heal. And that's what we were doing. We were removing thorns. It was fascinating. I've never experienced anything like it. And by the end of it, I was exhausted. It was 4 hours of coming in and out of this trance as he is guiding me. And it was one of the most intense sessions, therapeutic sessions I've ever had in my life. And it's not like I've had many. but it was an extremely intense coaching session with a lot of internal change that happened. And I am seeing it right now, because now I am putting myself out there more. I'm having more courage. I'm speaking my thoughts. I'm actually I'm being me. I'm being more of me, of my authentic self. And we have these barriers that we've put on ourselves throughout our lives, these barriers of fear, of guilt, and we don't truly believe that we can be the person that we want to be. There's something that stops us. There's self-sabotage and all these preconditions, and you're not even aware of them. That's the crazy thing. Like, they're so deeply rooted into your psyche that you're not aware of them. And the key is to relax. That's the key. The only way that you can change your behavior is to become more present and become more relaxed, so that you can become more suggestible to new ideas and to change the past. And so that's why therapies like psilocybin and LSD and ayahuasca help so much, because they go so deep into those deep-rooted traumas. But there's so many ways to heal. And I think this was extremely profound, because I was being guided. And so this was only about a month ago, and I'm already seeing huge changes in my behaviors and in my thinking. And one of the biggest shifts that I see is that I very rarely now, even after a month, very rarely now think about the things that I don't want. And before, I would worry a lot. I would think about the things that I didn't want. I was like, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? I don't want that to happen. What if I lose money? What if it doesn't work out, right? And logically, it makes absolutely no sense to think about those things. Well, yes, they can happen. They're there. But why focus on them? Just focus on what you want. I want this outcome. The obstacle's going to be there no matter what. Don't make it bigger than it needs to be. And I would do that. I would make the monster bigger than it needed to be. And now I'm not doing that. I'm going this way. This is where I'm going. And I feel calm and at peace about it. Way more than I ever did. So that was my hypnotherapy session. Feel free to put a comment down below to ask me any more questions about it. I'm still working with my coach, and he's incredible. More than happy to refer you over to him as well. But I also have a newsletter. You can go find it down below, and you can find a little bit more about my thoughts and ideas. You can follow more closely about, this journey in healing our traumas, so we can be free ultimately, so we can roam the world as we want. Anyways, peace and love to you, my friend. Hope this helped, and like and subscribe. Cheers.